Hello, thank you for joining me in another video. Today, I want to talk about a couple of books that I bought in the last few months. I think I've been very diligent with not spending too much of my money on books, which I'm very happy about, as opposed to previous years where I just had no cap on how many books I would buy. I think this year I really just toned it down, and this is really only the second haul that I've done this year, so I'm pretty happy about that. I think it's a normal amount of books to have bought for a person who loves books. So I think that's pretty good. We have a variety of books today. We have a couple romances, we have a couple of fantasy books, and then I think the remaining are classics, which is the typical genre that I like to gravitate towards. And very surprisingly, not a lot of these are wintry books, which is weird because usually I like to buy in anticipation for the following season a lot of books about that season, but for some reason this year I haven't done that. Maybe it's because I still have quite a few books on my shelves that I want to read for winter in general, and so maybe I didn't feel the need to buy more. But there is one that is more wintry, and I'm so excited about it. So I think we're gonna start with that one. Get cozy with me and get ready to talk about my new additions to my home library. Okay, so I really want to tell you about that Christmassy book that I told you about. It's a romance, and this is just me falling for the TikTok book talk trends. Last year, there is one particular author that I have seen come up in so many people's videos, especially for Christmas. This author wrote Love Life Farms, I think it's called, and everyone seemed to absolutely enjoy it. Everyone seemed to think that she writes in a way that is a bit different from other romance authors, and it's not as cringy, which is a big issue that I have with a lot of romance that I read. And so she's coming up with a new book this Christmas. I haven't read the previous one, but I do plan to at some point. I was just walking around in a bookstore and I saw it sitting there and it looks so good. I'm like, okay, I'm just buying it. So obviously I'm talking about Good Spirits by BK Borison. I'm so in love with her covers. They're so simple, but yet so, I don't know, they just invite you in. Anyway, this is, I think, maybe not a retelling, but a little bit of a spin-off on A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Last year, I also read a little bit of a retelling spin-off of A Christmas Carol from another author, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know why. For some reason, I just love retellings of A Christmas Carol and adaptations to more modern takes on what happens in the Christmas Carol. So I'm super excited about this one. So this one is following Nolan, who is the ghost of Christmas past. He goes on to haunt Harriet and to bring her, back to past Christmases and go on that journey of discovering who she is and, why Christmas is important and all of those beautiful themes that are being brought up in A Christmas Carol. But from what I know, there are certain things in Harriet's past that they both discover that link them together in some weird way. The more that the days go by and they get closer to Christmas, fall in love, and then they have to kind of figure out what happens because he's a ghost and she's not. It sounds a little bit silly, but I have this feeling that I'm going to like this author and how she writes romance, and so I'm really excited to pick it up. It looks very cutesy, very flirty, and I also plan on picking up the other books that she wrote. I don't own any of them. This is the first one that I own from her, so maybe I'll use this as a little trial run to see if I vibe with her and her writing style before I jump into her next reads. The next book is probably the book on this list that is the most intimidating to me. It is an American classic. I'm talking about John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. I have read my first Steinbeck this year with a very tiny novella from him, Of Mice and Men. I absolutely adored it. Such a moving story. And it really allowed me to see that he's actually not that scary of a writer. His writing style is very crisp and very to the point. And so knowing that, I'm trying to train myself to be a bit less intimidated by his other bigger works. The Grapes of Wrath has been for me one of those books that is just, those top tier books that you're just like, I need to read those before I die. The Grapes of Wrath has always been that for me. I'm so excited to have bought it. And I bought this beautiful Penguin. I don't know what type of edition this is from Penguin Classics, but I love these editions. I do not know much about this. I do know it's set in the period of the Great American Depression, and it follows a family who has to locate in a different part of the country because of economical reasons. So I think a lot of the themes that are being brought up here are similar to the ones that were in of Mice and Men, things like poverty, things like exploitation, injustice, resilience, and all of that. And from what I heard, the way in which he kind of goes about describing this family in particular, the unit of the family, and what it means to, stick together in difficult moments is really powerful and touching. So I'm really, really excited to see that. I feel like in Of Mice and Men, he did obviously an amazing job at bringing both of those two characters together, Lenny and who was the other guy? I can't remember the name of the other character, but I feel like he fleshed them out so well, and their dynamic and their relationship and friendship in 100 pages. So I'm so excited to see how he will translate that type of fleshing out in so many more pages. I think it's going to be sweeping me away. I'm really excited about this one. I honestly don't know when I'm gonna be picking it up. I already know it's going to be an incredibly sad story, so I'm just waiting for a time when I can embrace that sadness, because it's one thing to embrace that type of sadness for a day or a couple days with a short novella, but it's a completely different thing when you have such a huge book and it's going to put a strain on your emotional stability for quite a while, maybe a month or longer. So I'm waiting for the time when I'm going to be ready to pick this one up, but I'm very, very happy to add it to my collection. The next book, I actually have read parts of it in university, but I don't remember much from it. I remember really, really enjoying it, but I don't remember the story. I don't remember what I loved about it. Like, it just sits as a very distant ghost in my past. I cannot really piece together anything substantial about the book. And last time I read it, I think I read it just from either a course pack or in some anthology. Like, I never owned it, so I wanted to buy it and properly give it a reread. And I'm talking about Joseph Conrad's The Heart of Darkness. This one follows Marlowe, who is a sailor, and he ends up in colonial Congo. This story happens, I believe, in the late 1800s, so really at the height of the European colonization in Africa. And it follows basically this man who gets there and he is confronted with the realities of what colonization did to the land and basically the people living there. He becomes kind of really weirdly enthralled with this mystical, I don't remember if it's a mystical figure or it's someone who actually lived, like a real person, but he becomes obsessed with this figure of Mr. Kurtz. And so he goes on a journey across Congo to find him. And we just follow him through his journey with the goal of reaching Mr. Kurtz, basically taking on the role of an observer and seeing everything that is happening in Congo at those times. It's actually a pretty small book. I think it's probably considered a novella because this whole thing is not just the book itself. I do love these Penguin classics because they oftentimes have a pretty good, solid introduction to the text. And then also, I'm not sure about this one, but sometimes they also include some additional notes and essays written by scholars on the work. I feel like with this type of text that is literary but also quite historical, it's really good to have all of those extra types of texts to just have a more solid foundation and understanding of the context in which it was written. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to give this one another shot. And I really wish I had the notes that I had back in university when we were discussing this work, because I could not remember anything about it. But I have a feeling either I threw away my notes or they were on a previous computer that crashed and died. So yeah, I don't think it's feasible for me to retrieve those notes, unfortunately. But it's okay. I'll have a completely new experience reading this once again with fresh eyes and hopefully making some new notes on it. The next book is a book that is very outside of my comfort zone, a little bit, and a little bit inside my comfort zone. The book I'm talking about is The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. The reason why I'm saying it's outside of my comfort zone is because I do not like to read mystery. I don't see the appeal of trying to find out what happened in a mysterious murder situation. I don't get the mystery. I don't get the thrill of trying to figure out who did what. But the reason I'm saying it's a little bit inside my comfort zone is because I have studied Italian literature literature, and so I'm really excited to go back into it a little bit with this book. This one is in English, so I won't be reading it in Italian. My Italian is quite rusty at this point. We're following a monk and his disciple, and basically they arrive at this new monastery where a lot of mysterious deaths started to occur, and they both kind of take on these roles of investigators trying to figure out what is happening. Basically, some of the reasons why I'm really intrigued by this is because I think the characterization of the monk is going to be interesting, in a sense that from what I've read in previous reviews, he's characterized as this person who is extremely logical, very sharp-minded, very analytical, and I'm really excited to see how that will play out. I think there's also going to be quite a bit of theological debates here, especially because it's set in the monastery, and I think a lot of it also plays on the religious controversies at the time that were going on in Italy, and so I feel like for that reason it's going to be really interesting. And I do know that there's this kind of mystical, mysterious library in the monastery that is going to be a really cool location to kind of go in and do all these investigations in. Yeah, I think the reason that I'm still willing to give it a shot is because it probably reaches a bit more than just mystery. I think it reaches points of, philosophical debate and historical fiction. I think that's going to be interesting and is going to keep my mind stimulated, even though I might not be interested in the plotting elements of like who did what. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one. Don't know when I'm gonna be picking it up, but yeah, who knows? I will keep you posted and we'll see when I'm gonna get to it. The next two books are books that I bought simply to continue a fantasy series that I started, I think 3 years ago or 2 years ago, and I'm trying to read about a book a year. I really want to extend my experience with reading the series. I find that it's a series that is easy to get through and it's very bingeable, and so I just like to give myself one book a year to just chill out and just go back into that world. And I'm talking about the Throne of Glass series. So I bought 2 books in that series. I bought The Queen of Shadows and what is that one? The Tower of Dawn. I think this one is book 4, and I think the other one, I think this is book 6. I don't know anything about what happens in these books because I haven't reached that part yet. I have not yet read the 3rd book, so I only read books 1 and 2, and I'm planning to read the 3rd book hopefully this winter. I feel like these books are so easy to get, just swept up in and just basically binge for a good couple days. So I'm thinking to maybe pick it up in those days between Christmas and New Year when everyone just lives in a limbo and there's no time and there's no space and there's nothing. You just sit at home and you eat and you read. So yeah, I'm thinking to pick up the 3rd book then, and then maybe the 4th at some other point in time. It's not a series that I'm in love with, but it's a series that really intrigues me. Listen, I think the writing is definitely cringy in a lot of parts, but I also think that the plotting elements are really interesting. Like, I think Sarah J. Maas just knows when to add a little bit of spice in a seemingly linear, easy plot just to keep you interested and to expand the world just a little bit. I don't know, she does it so well. So yeah, I'm really excited to have added these 2 bricks to the collection. The next book that I picked up is a Virginia Woolf novel, and it's called The Waves. I have not read a Woolf in a very long time now. I've read Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse, again, back in university, and ever since I've always been intimidated to pick up another Woolf. She is one of those female writers that just completely intrigues me, and her whole life is so sad and so intriguing to see how she went about using her depression and her emotional hardships and translating those into art. And for some reason, that's why her novels just hit so hard for me. It just, with that knowledge going into them, like they just transport me into a whole other time and space than if I hadn't known that fact about her. Because of that, her novels, the way that she writes in a very stream of consciousness type of writing, it just moves something inside of me. And I think for those reasons, I've always been afraid of picking up another Virginia Woolf, because I feel like if I don't have a professor to tell me the things that I have to pay attention to, or, like just guide me a little bit in the reading experience, I'm just scared to not give it my all and to not really understand it. I know that's really stupid, because I mean, at the end of the day, that's what literature is for, to test you and to challenge you. I think this one is considered one of her most controversial and experimental novel, and so I'm even more scared of this one than any other ones of her novels that she wrote. It follows the perspectives of 6 siblings, and it's set on the coast of England, essentially following their stream of consciousness, their emotions, their perspectives through the whole entirety of their life, so going from childhood all the way to adulthood. And I read a review by someone who said that this book felt like playing in the ocean. You feel very disoriented in some moments, and then in some other moments you have these moments of clarity and just peace, which really, really struck home to me, because I feel like that's how I felt reading her other works before. I think this could be potentially a good summer read because it's set in the coast near the sea. Yeah, I'm very scared of this one. Maybe even more scared than The Grapes of Wrath. Maybe this is the one I'm most scared of. All right, next we have a duology. I typically don't buy a whole series of books until I have read the first to know whether I really like it, because chances are, I don't know why, but series in general I don't like as much as standalones. However, so many people talked about this book and raved about it and said it's like so creative and so new. There's just something about it that is so different from other fantasy works that I feel like, you know what? I'm probably gonna love it. And I saw it in a box set, so I'm like, this is the chance to snatch both of them at the same time. And I'm talking about One Dark Window duology by Rachel Gillig. One Dark Window is the first book, and then we have Two Twisted Crowns, which is the second book. And listen, if anything, if I don't like the first, I'll just sell both of them or I'll donate both of them. So it's really not that big of a deal. I did get a good deal for both, so I am happy I picked both up. So essentially, this duology, as you could probably tell by the aesthetics of the cover, is set in this magical, gothic, dark world. And we are following Elspeth, who is this girl who has something in her mind called a nightmare. So I'm not sure if it's like literally a nightmare or it's a manifestation that is a bit more anthropomorphized of a nightmare. I'm not exactly sure, but there's something going on in her mind. And this thing, it could be both dangerous but also protective of her. And so she's trying to keep it a secret as much as possible. Honestly, that's as much as I know. I just know she gets swept up in all of these political intrigues, obviously, and going on this adventure, trying to rebel against the oppressive ruler of the land. I heard that the magical system in here is really, really creative and different. And so that really excites me, because I feel that a lot of the time when I read fantasy, the magical system is always the same. It's always the same 5 ingredients that are used. And, I'm not mad about it. I love it as much as the next person, but it is nice when authors go outside of the comfort zone of what fantasy is supposed to be or what magic is supposed to be and really bring in more creative elements. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one. I wanted to pick it up this Halloween season, but it didn't really happen. So who knows, maybe this will be my fantasy series for next Halloween. I have one more book to share with you, and this is by no other than Miss Abby Jimenez. This is her newest novel, Say You Remember Me. As I said before, I'm not a big fan of romance. I don't do a lot of romance reads, but Abby Jimenez truly changed me into a new woman when it comes to romance. She is the one author that really allowed me to see the potential of romance books in a completely new light. I discovered her this year, and I have read 3 books by her this very first year, which is crazy because usually when I discover a new author, I'll just read like 1 book and I'll be done. But this year I binged 3 of her books, and then I also read another like shorter novella or short story from her. This is her newest addition to the collection. This one follows Xavier, who is a veterinarian, and Samantha, who one day brings in a wounded kitty. So Xavier takes care of that cat, and then following that they go on a date. On this date, they have a great time. They're both, into each other, but Samantha does have some family responsibilities. Her mom is really, really sick, and so she has to move across the country to take care of her. And so, despite the fact that they had a wonderful first date, both of them have to now separate because Amanda has to leave. So I think the novel will probably explore a little bit that long distance type of dynamic and what happens there. I just love Abby Jimenez's writing. I love how she characterizes male characters in particular in her books. Also female characters, but I feel like her male characters are just so well fleshed out and so human. I find that in a lot of romance books, male characters tend to be very, I don't know, just almost unhuman, like just weird, just so weird. And I can never get behind how any male characters would speak in a romance. I'm like, I've never heard a man say that in my life. Whereas with Abby Jimenez, I feel like she's just really good at portraying humans in their real flesh. And I really see a human being when I read from a perspective of a female or a male in her books. So yeah, I just wanted to pick this one up and add it to my collection for the next time that I want to read a romance. All of them in their beauty and their glory. Please let me know if you've read any of these books, particularly if you read the classics that intimidated me a little bit, because yeah, it's just this mental block that I have about them that I need to get over. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.